everyone, in today's CQURE Hacks, we will show you attacks using a shortcut file to capture net NTLM version 2 hash and crack it to initiate NTLM relay attack. So let's move on to our lab environment. Starting from the beginning, let's first use CMAP exec with the option shares to find a share with write permissions. For this, we use the credentials of Bob, who is a regular domain user. As we can see on the SRV01 host, there is a share named documents on which Bob has write permissions. Let's now switch to Windows on which we are logged in as Bob. Let's go to this network share discovered previously. As we can see, there are some documents here. So let's try to create a file here to make sure we actually have these permissions. The file has been created, let's delete it now. So now let's move on to PowerShell ICE, and using PowerShell we can create a shortcut file with extension LNK that will refer to our SMB server that will be running on our Kali Linux using responder or in-packet NTLM relay. This is the IP address of our Kali over here, so it's very important to remember. This file will be created in the secure folder under the name malicious.lnk, and let's run this script. Now, let's go to the C secure folder and check if the file has been created. As you can see, the malicious file has been created. So let's now copy and paste it into the documents share. Now we go back to Kali Linux and enable the responder to listen for incoming connections with a command like this. Now let's go back to Windows on user Bob and open share documents again. At this point, nothing will happen because in the file explorer, this malicious file we uploaded here, it's not visible. As you can see in the responder, nothing is happening. Only when we go to the bottom, like now, and see it in File Explorer, it calls back to the IP address that we specified when creating this file. The user Bob, on whom we are logged in, invoked our server and we intercepted his hash net NTLM version 2. So now let's try to rename this file so that the user who enters this share doesn't have to go to the very bottom, but that the file is displayed at the very top. And let's add the @ sign at the beginning of the file name. After re-entering, we see that the file is already at the very top. So now let's try to do the same thing, but from a different host and the administrator user. Open the File Explorer again and go to Documents Share on the SRV01 host. Only open and do not do anything else. Now let's check on Kali Linux if the hash was captured. And the hash has been intercepted. As you can see, we can do a lot of things with that. So question is, what actually we can do with it? Well, we can, for example, crack it if the password is in practice not difficult. So let's copy this hash, disable the responder, and save it in the file hash.txt. Let's use John the Ripper to crack it. The hash has been cracked easily, and here we see the administrator's password. Well, okay, let's now move on to the NTLM relay attack again, using the same LNK file we created earlier. Let's generate a list of the servers using CMAP exec and save it to a file targets.txt. let's use the cat command to see if it was generated correctly. Now, let's turn on the script in packet NTLM relay XPY with that list we created earlier and the options SMB to support and SOCKS. Let's simulate the administrator opening this share again. Let's go back to the Kali machine. We see that administrator has connected to our server. So let's use the SOCKS command to see which host it managed to relay to. We see that it's the host with this IP address. So what can we do next? First, we need to see and set the proxy chains to port 1080 as you can see here. We open a new console, but do not close this one, and edit the etc proxy chains for conf file, so the config file, and go to the very bottom and add this line and save the file. And here it has already been added earlier. So now, using proxy chains, we can, for example, use CrackMap exec as administrator on the host 10.10.10.30 to which we managed to relay. The password can be anything because we are already authenticated with net NTLM version 2 using a relay attack. As you can see, we have successfully authenticated. For an experiment, let's change the password and you can see that the effect is exactly the same. What can now, for example, happen is by using CrackMap exec, we can dump the LSA, we can do the same with some database. For example, we can also use in-packet SMB exec to execute a reverse shell and connect to this host as anti-authority, and we've been connected. So let's use the commands whoami, hostname, and so on. We can do also whoami/all, so you can see the effective result of our actions. And as you can see, this LNK file allows us to initiate attacks with NTLM relay, and you only need the right permission on any of the shares to set up the trap for other users. Then it's enough that any user accesses the share and we have his net NTLM version 2 response ready for cracking, and if SMB signing is disabled somewhere, we can even use NTLM relay attacks. So that will be it. Hopefully you enjoyed that tutorial. Please subscribe to our CQURE Hacks and looking forward to seeing you on another episodes. Stay secure.